Okay, putting it all together. So part 4 of section 1-2, solving multi-step equations. So finally we get to actually solve multi-step equations. We did one step, we did two step, now we're going to do multiple steps. So the multiple steps come in when an equation needs to be cleaned up. Okay, so sometimes you're going to see that it needs to be cleaned up. So what I mean by cleaned up is you might need to use the distributive property or combine like terms. So that's what we should always check for. Before we do that process we learned in the last video for undoing what's happening to the variable using opposite operations in the opposite order, we need to check for parentheses, because if there's parentheses, that's very likely we're going to have to use the distributive property. Okay, so if you see parentheses with a number or negative sign multiplying in front, use the distributive property first before you do anything else. Okay, so here I see an equation and I see that I have 3 on the outside of parentheses. So I'm going to distribute that first. So let's do 3 times 2x minus 3 times 1. So that's 6x minus 3 is equal to 24. Now I'm at that point that we were at in the last video where we looked at two-step equations. So I see that I'm multiplying by 6 and subtracting 3. So the first thing I need to undo is the subtracting 3. So I'm going to add 3 to both sides. And we get 6x is equal to, because this cancels, 27. Now I need to divide by 6. So in this case I don't get a perfect whole number, and that doesn't mean we did anything wrong. Many equations will not give you a whole number. So when we have a fraction, you should leave it as a fraction. Just reduce it. So I can divide this by 3 and I can divide this by 3 and I get 9 halves, and that is a great answer. Improper fractions are good in algebra. Alright, so you don't need to turn that into a mixed fraction. Mixed fraction has their place, but very rarely do we need to change it to a mixed fraction. Alright, the next thing we need to check for is, do you have anything to combine? Okay, so here in this example we see like terms on one side of the equation, or sometimes both. Remember, sides of an equation are separated by the equal sign. So our equal sign is right here. So I'm looking at this side. Can I combine anything? Yes, I can. I have 2x and negative 4x. That gives me negative 2x. Then we have 5 and negative 7. That gives me negative 2. So we need to combine things first. All right, and then we still have on the other side equal to 10. All right, now we're at the step where we're going to undo what is happening in the reverse order. So first thing that's happening is we're multiplying by a negative 2. Then we're subtracting 2. So I need to get rid of the subtracting 2 by adding 2 first. You probably can tell that we're undoing the adding or subtracting first, usually. Okay, so that's gone. We have negative 2x is equal to 12. Then we divide by negative 2. Remember that this is multiplying, so we're dividing. Okay, so x equals negative 6 is our answer. All right, putting it all together, let's just do one more where we have distribution and combining like terms, and we have to do all of this. So in general, we always do the distribution first if there is any. So in this case, we do have one. We have parentheses and we have a negative sign on the outside. Remember, that's like a negative 1. So we're going to distribute a negative 1. So let's do that first. 2x minus 5x minus 7. Distributing a negative just makes everything the opposite sign. All right, now we need to check to see if we can combine like terms. on one side of the equal sign. We don't combine across the equal sign. And yes, this 2x and minus 5x can be combined like terms. So that is negative 3x minus 7 equals negative 7. Now we're at the step where we're going to undo what is happening in the reverse order. So first we're multiplying by negative 3 and subtracting 7 second. So let's undo this subtracting 7 first. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides. These cancel, but so do these. But we have to put a number here, and that number is 0. We could put the 0 here over here, but we don't usually do that when we're moving something. It cancels. We don't need to write it. But in this case, we'll put the 0 over here. So we have a negative 3x is equal to 0. Now we have to divide by negative 3. 0 divided by negative 3 is equal to 0. And so the answer is 0. Okay, and we can solve pretty much any equation except for one type, which we'll learn in the next lesson.